listening to the ESQ Marketing Podcast, hosted by Matthew Laurin, President of ESQ Marketing, where he features successful solo and SMB law firms from all over the United States. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, I'm Matthew Laurin, President of ESQ Marketing, and you're listening to the ESQ Marketing Podcast, where I feature successful and solo SMB law firms from all over the United States. I have Jeremy Wise here, who has done thousands of interviews with successful leaders and CEOs, and we have flipped the script today, and he will be interviewing me.
Matt,
Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm excited about today's episode because, listen, I have actually thought about this many, many times, even though I'm not a lawyer, because we're going to be talking about when you migrate a site from one place to your own site, how do you keep all the stuff that you've built up, all the backlinks, all the good stuff you've built up? So we will be talking about that. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by ESQ Marketing, and they help law firms generate more clients and cases using search marketing. And so basically, Matt, what you do is you help people show up on the first page of Google so they get more clients, and clients can find them, and people can go to esq.marketing. So thanks for having me. The question is, if you're thinking of migrating your site from a Justia or FindLaw, how does that work? Should they do it? Why should they do it?
Great question. So Justia, FindLaw, and even Scorpion are popular website platforms for attorneys. They offer legal marketing, they offer website hosting and design. And so there's a lot of law firms that use these services. They're turnkey, and they offer some marketing services and things like that. So, but after some time, law firms start to grow and scale, and they want to change the look of their site, or they want to do something different from a marketing perspective. And they often find themselves running into roadblocks with these platforms because they're proprietary. They're meant to be a turnkey business that these companies can use, and they sort of lock attorneys into using the structure that was designed for the site, using their method for website hosting and website design, and they find themselves in a position where they need to get away from it. But how do you do that? So
a quick question, Matt, on that. So obviously a positive side, when you're first starting out, it's just an easy way to get something up there, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And what are people worried about? So we've talked a little bit about once you're more established, there's many reasons to not have your site be on there. And so what are some of the reasons why people should migrate off?
So without going into specifics about what these platforms, like how they're structured or what roadblocks there are, because I'm not really sure off the top of my head what you can and can't do with them. But I know that some clients have run into problems with being able to customize code to a certain extent, or having the flexibility to install third-party tracking scripts or additional functionality on their website. For example, maybe you want to link your website with a case intake program or a certain type of chat, and maybe you run into roadblocks because a FindLaw or Justia or Scorpion website is just not conducive to using those. I've had clients that want to change their permalink structure, but there's some restrictions in the platform that won't allow them to do that. Maybe they want to add, they want to change the overall look and feel of their website, and the platform doesn't allow for a coder or a designer to go in and make any kind of changes because it's just not flexible enough. Yeah. And so those are all good reasons to, at that point, say, hey, maybe I've outgrown this platform. Maybe I need to migrate to a WordPress site, which we work in WordPress constantly. It's an extremely flexible platform. You own it. You can do a self-hosted version. And you can do pretty much anything you want to do if you can migrate your site off of there onto WordPress.
So some of the benefits would be, when you mention the permalink, it's those things when you control them are better for SEO in general.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And
so if you want to, add keyword phrases into your permalink structure or change how Google sees the structure of your site, those are all beneficial things for SEO.
Yeah. And then adding functionality is big. If, sometimes there's like a process, like certain chats or certain things that allow you to be in touch with your potential client, which could mean business, like real business in dollars.
Yeah. And maybe you want to install like a third-party script that changes the phone number based on how somebody visits your site. And so, that's some tracking functionality you might want to add. You might want to put in a contact form from some other third-party platform that allows you to, move your data or your leads around. And sometimes you can't always do that with a proprietary platform because they won't allow you to paste code in certain places, or you may be restricted as to how it can be built. And so overall, you're kind of, when you're on one of these platforms, you're kind of pigeonholed into doing things a certain way.
And then the other thing is probably the self-hosting cost, like actually having control of the platform and probably smaller hosting costs.
Yeah, that's a big one. So to host a website is nothing. I mean, if you're hosting a website on a GoDaddy or WP Engine or Bluehost or wherever you go, the cost is usually nominal. I mean, a couple $100 a year. And for most attorney websites, that's all you need. I mean, they're not doing e-commerce. They're not doing anything that's really resource intensive for a server. So you're talking a couple $100 a year max. Whereas if you have your site on, Justia or Scorpion or FindLaw, I'm not sure what their fees are off the top of my head, but I know that it's probably going to be more than just a general hosting package, because you may be tied into other marketing services, you may be tied into other technical services to keep the site up and running, where you're paying on a monthly basis, and it may be more cost effective to just go with a traditional host and control the site yourself.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, we'll actually show some specific examples in a second, but what are people worried about, Matt, from your experience? What's holding them back from actually migrating?
Yeah, the clients that come to us that want to do migrations, it's either something to do with SEO or something to do with the way the site functions and looks. So some clients have been really happy with the way their site looks. They like the colors and the menu and the structure and everything about it. They just don't want to be on the platform anymore. They want to be able to control things themselves. They don't want to pay fees or whatever it is. And they just want to move the site off. And so we've had a lot of success in cloning sites, making them look just like they do on the whatever service they're with, and then moving it to a WordPress installation, so they can still have the same look and feel, but be able to control everything themselves. And then on the SEO side, maybe they want to redesign the site and move it off the platform, but they are worried about losing rankings because over time, links are built to sites, certain pages, and if you change the URL structure of a website when you move it, you can lose those links, which will eventually impact your rankings if it's not fixed right away. Sites like Justia sites I know use .html and .shtml extensions on the end of the URLs. So when you move something like that to WordPress, you don't have those extensions anymore and the page will break. So we do a pretty extensive process where we comb through the site and we take out all the URLs and make sure we have everything organized, and then we do a page-to-page redirect. So redirecting home to home, redirecting car accident lawyer to car accident lawyer on the new site, making sure that the experience for users is seamless, where if they click on a link that went to a car accident page, they're still going to land on that car accident page, even though it's a different URL. And those are the things that people most often worry about, is just how is my site going to behave the same way? Is everything going to be the same as it is now? It'll just be away from one of these platforms.
And basically you go in link for link and actually just make sure they're all going to be, because that's probably a big concern. It's like, well, I built up this page over many years. I don't want to lose this. And there could be 20, 50, 100 of these.
Yeah. In some cases. So when you're talking about backlinks, individually, there could be thousands. When you're talking about referring domains, which are like unique referring domains, it's usually, I mean, we've seen some with just, maybe a couple hundred, and then we've seen some with well over 1,000. Yeah, I mean, when you have a link built to a car accident page or a truck accident page, for example, sometimes in some cases you've worked really hard to get those links. They may be on really high authority sites and you don't want to lose them, but you also want to make sure that that link is going to point at the page it was pointing at before, and not just redirect everything to the home page, which is a major no-no. So yeah, we go through page by page, link by link, and making sure everything redirects to the place it's supposed to go.
Are there any other big concerns or worries people have when migrating?
Yeah, I mean, some of these platforms, the content can be proprietary in some cases, and we always make sure to communicate with the client and the platform to make sure that we aren't taking anything proprietary, like images. Sometimes stock images are not owned by the client. In some cases, we've seen it where content is not owned by the client. And so we just have to make sure that everything that we're copying over to another server is something the client is allowed to take with them. In most cases, it is, especially with blog content or page content, it is. But images are pretty easy to replace. But that's also a concern we see a lot.
Is there a concern, Matt, with, I know some of the ones in different industries, I know sometimes there's duplicate content across different sites just to, the site will have duplicate content to put across all of their websites. Can that hurt someone who's on one of these platforms?
Are you talking about like if we cloned it and migrated it?
No, I mean like I know there's chiropractic, ones, and we're talking about the legal field. There's chiropractic ones, and they go, oh, they have this article on back pain, and they put it across all of their hosted websites, and it's on all of the websites, no matter if you're in, San Francisco or Chicago or LA or New York. And sometimes the people don't realize that's all duplicate content and all these other, it's the same on all these other, their chiropractic websites.
Yeah, I haven't seen that on any of these ones. Not to say it doesn't happen, but yeah, I haven't seen a prevalence of duplicate content on any of the legal platforms. But that is a concern. If you were migrating from a proprietary platform to your own website, if they had content that they used on other pages, you'd want to scan for it and make sure there isn't anything being used on other sites. I mean, it would be a concern even just staying on the platform, because what happens is if there are multiple pages with substantially the same amount of content, like multiple paragraphs that's exactly the same, what happens is Google doesn't really know which one is the original or the most authoritative, and so they are left in the lurch trying to guess which one is the correct one, or which one is the most relevant for the searcher. And what often happens with duplicate content issues is that pages just struggle to rank well. So if you have a page if you have a web page that could be on the first page of Google, maybe even at the top, it might struggle to get there and be like right at the cusp of the first and second page, and struggle to get any further, or lower, because of duplicate content issues. Yeah. And that would be a concern whether you move the site or not.
Mel, let's take a look at some examples. So, I have Justia, I have FindLaw, and we just took an example of a site that we found that, because verified that it says Justia Law Firm website design at the bottom. Yeah,
this was, I think, a review on their homepage.
Versus one that is not. You can find this was a migrated one.
This is, yeah.
Yeah. So talk about some of the differences. So we have this one, and then this one, obviously it's not the same one, but this one was on one of the other ones and has been migrated over.
Yeah, this one was on FindLaw. Mm-hmm. And this was a case where this firm liked the way the site looked, but they wanted to move off of the FindLaw platform. So we made a clone of the site and built it on a staging server. And then once we were finished doing all the development. And once the client had reviewed it and was happy with the way everything looked, we flipped the switch and pointed their domain at WP Engine, which is where the site is hosted now. So a couple of things, like they didn't have, they had a proprietary chat feature they used on FindLaw, and that was one of their concerns. They wanted to still be able to do chat on the site. So we went with a third party, Engage Chat, which is popular in the legal industry. Images on the site, they wanted to swap out some images on the practice area pages to be more relevant to the content there. So we did that for them. But otherwise, it's an exact replica of what was there. It came over pretty nicely.
And then some of those same concerns were like making sure to maintain the SEO value and all of that. Are there any other things to point out with the migration process?
So the URL structure was a big one. If you go to the practice area pages, scroll down and just click on one of the links on this page. Yeah, right there is fine. At the end of each one of these URLs, instead of a backslash ending the URL, it was .shtml. And that was across the board on every single page. So, and you can't see this either, but in all the images, those images were stored in specific folders that all ended in, the file name all ended in SHTML. So all those specific files for the pages, and then all the images and JavaScript and CSS and all those different files all had to be redirected to different locations and to different file extensions. So going through and doing that was a pretty tedious process, and getting all the pages to resolve to their correct locations without losing rankings, because we didn't, this firm had built links to hundreds of different websites. Hundreds of different websites had built links to this firm's website over time, and if they were to lose that, they would have probably lost a significant amount of traffic and business.
Yeah. So the permalink structure you could see here, the top would have some weird like SH on the other side.
On the very end of it, it would have been, so right after that word death, instead of a slash, it would be .shtml.
Got it.
It's not bad for SEO. It's just that it was a different, it was a file, an HTML file, as opposed to WordPress, which behaves a little bit differently. This whole page is constructed using a bunch of different parts on the back end, and it's the predominant programming language in WordPress is PHP. So all this is constructed on the fly as it gets loaded, whereas HTML is a little bit different. But anyway, we'd have to redirect those URLs so they go to the right place. Otherwise, you would just hit an error page. And eventually, if that happens over time with link building, links can fall off and be deleted. Website owners that link to this site, if they all of a sudden have an error page, they might delete the link or delete the page the link is on. And then obviously that link won't pass authority to the new site because it's just hitting an error page.
And what you're saying is also you can maintain, if you like the design and you like the functionality, you could still maintain that design and functionality. They're just added functionality and other features you can do.
Yeah. Some things can't be carried over, like obviously the proprietary chat. FindLaw has a proprietary chat that they use for their clients. We can't use that obviously because it's theirs. So, but there's a lot of other similar things that do the job. So there's always a workaround.
Yeah, well, I can see there's a chat right here on this one, so this is obviously fine. What else when people should realize when migrating a website?
I would say just have a plan for maintaining updates and things like that. This particular law firm had someone internally that was already pretty savvy with website updates and WordPress in general. So they had a plan moving forward who is going to update content, who is going to keep an eye on things. Some attorneys, if you don't have an agency, or if you don't have an internal person or somebody that you're working with that can help you out with website updates or just managing the whole process and then managing the site after the process is over, you might want to get that in place first before you migrate the site away from FindLaw, because FindLaw or any of the other platforms, they do that service for you.
Anything else to consider when migrating the site and overall your overall stance? I mean, because you're basically helping people with their SEO and getting the top of Google. So I'm wondering your stance on migrating versus not migrating in general.
I mean, I think everybody should just be on WordPress or something that they can manage on their own. I think you have more flexibility with SEO and installing things like schema and third-party scripts, and more flexibility over managing your content. Improving page speed. You're not sort of beholden to a company to make sure that all the technical aspects are worked out. You can choose your hosting platform. You can choose a high-quality host that's got good uptime, that has efficient servers, efficient technology, and you're not resigned to using one particular platform that may they may have their ducks in a row and they may not. And if something's going on at FindLaw or one of these other places, or Justia, and their sites aren't performing well or their servers are down, then there's not much you can do. You just got to wait to let it be fixed. Whereas if you have a site hosted somewhere else on your own, you can shop around and get the best, choose the best provider for that particular thing. WP Engine's a great one. They're extremely reliable. They have amazing support services, and they're made for WordPress sites. That hosting is made for WordPress sites. It's really easy to migrate things. It's really easy to do any kind of technical updates. So I would definitely, if you're a law firm thinking of getting more out of your site and being more flexible and maybe scaling and doing more with it, I would definitely think about migrating off of these platforms if you're on them.
Matt, as always, thank you. Everyone can check out esq.marketing. I appreciate you having me.
No problem, buddy. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for listening to the ESQ Marketing Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.